Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer Dan. And today, for my Disney movie marathon, I'm going to be reviewing a sci-fi feature. And it's the more recent Star Wars film, Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. And yes, before anyone tells me, I've already reviewed this film in the past, but I'm going to be reviewing a different version of the film, which I mean is the Blu-ray copy. Yep. And I watched this recently, so I just figured I'll review the Blu-ray version, of course, and that's what I'll be talking about. I mean, I want to talk about some of the live-action stuff anyway, so I just thought mine as well. And yes, I can really tell that a lot of the toxic fans are going to be getting really pissed off at me for actually enjoying this film. I don't need any of that, any angry comments or whatever in my comment section. Just go back to your mother's basement and just look up some hentai while at it, okay? Because when you think about it, they can be calling this film one of the worst sci-fi films ever made, if not the absolute worst one. That assumption is just ridiculous, folks, right off the bat, because I can easily tell you some sci-fi films that are inherently worse than this movie. Keep in mind, folks, I'm a top secret agent that's been around over 100 years, so of course I'm going to be watching a truck ton of sci-fi films. Out of these I'm showing right now are a billion times worse than the Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. And yeah, in comparison, Star Wars Rise of Skywalker is way more competently made more than any of these films. So yeah, just think about that, folks. So I just love that toxic fans can actually ruin something good for someone else. So just keep that in mind, folks. I can easily make an entire video displaying all these really garbage sci-fi films I've seen over the years that are in fact much, much worse. And I guess a prime example of which is this movie right here, folks, which is honestly it is so bad, it's so horrible. And one of its moments in this film is so horrendously stupid that it actually became a part of the intro of Mystery Science Theater 2000. Yeah, it's that laughably bad. That film alone is worse than any Star Wars film ever made. So, yeah, keep that in mind. You're wrong though. I'm not saying this movie is perfect because it really isn't. It's really rare that film is perfect, or at the very least, nearly perfect. So don't be thinking I'm just gonna be glorifying this film because it does have some stupid moments, but in the grand scheme of things, there's more good than bad. So yeah, I mean there's some things that could have done better, sure, but you could say that for almost every movie. Like, for example, while I did enjoy Tango and whatnot, and it's a really good film, however, I never got an explanation as to what made that flower so damn special. Like, is it drop from the sun, like the description? What does that mean? What? There's a like huge hole in the story because of that. So, yeah, folks, I'm just saying, don't be thinking I'm just gonna be just picking on one thing or another, or whatever. So anyway, point of the video, I'm gonna be talking about the Blu-ray version of this movie because I want to. That's why. So yeah, anyway, that could be the focus on this video after all. So I don't review sci-fi films all that often, come to think of it really. So I guess this would make a perfect excuse to do so. Talk about sci-fi film. Not exactly my favorite genre or whatever, but I'm gonna try to be fair with everything, of course, because that's what I do. Try to be fair with any story, with any film. So anyway, speaking of story, as always, let's get into the plot, shall we? So here we go. The conclusion of this sequel trilogy. And let's just say things start off pretty damn intense because they want to get to the action, guys. So there's no real need to reintroduce any of the characters because we're already familiar with these said characters anyway. So there's no point of reintroducing them. So anyway, we get to see the character of Palpatine has made a return because he was cloned, and it does make Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, a deal. But he's already having a situation with Rey, so if anything, it just makes this entire thing even more crazier than what it is. If anyone doesn't know any of these characters by now, well, that's their problem, because I don't feel like introducing these characters either. Basically, Palpatine wants to remain in power again, like he did in the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. So, with that in mind, he still remembers what had occurred before, and obviously, this film is going to be trying to be used as a way to connect everything. So, he wants to be like these ultimate ruler, with of course, with some assistance on his side, obviously. So, through the entire thing, he wants to make sure his plans will work. And what I mean is that he basically wants Ray to join up with him because he's saying that it's destined for her to do such a thing and to be with on his side because he feels that she does have the power that he really wants as well. Of course, even though despite the fact that he's been speaking to Ben Solo for quite some time prior to this, and he actually gave him an entire fleet to help him out. So I guess, what, to quote unquote help him out anyway. So I guess in that regard, it does make sense, I guess, because he wants the best and the best to be on his side so he can remain unopposed. Of course, there's still a conflict between Rey and Ben Solo, so that's still going on. So there's some issues that they still need to figure out, which of course just makes the stakes even on this movie even higher, which I think is pretty cool in its own way. Gotta have some conflict somehow. I mentioned a moment ago, the whole fleet thing that was shown right in the beginning of the film was given to Ben Solo. I guess that's a way to make him believe that Palpatine is going to be on his side. So, of course, that's not necessarily true because in a lot of ways it's all a trick. Give the film this. Right in the beginning of the film, you can clearly see not even the villains themselves can actually get along with each other because they actually fought each other. So I guess realistically speaking, that does add up really because it does make sense. Even in real life, criminals don't always agree with each other, and at times it gets into such violent matters. So that's cool, I suppose. And one thing I would definitely say is that, yeah, while all this crazy mess is going on, is that Rey herself is starting to really question herself because, yeah, there's the whole thing with the Sith. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to give away that little bit away too much, really, but let's just say it does play an important part in the overall story. So it does, things do get pretty crazy in regards to that. So who is she exactly? Well, she's not questioning herself about that, too. Not to give away too much either, but what happens to Princess Leia will have a major impact in the overall story. And I mean that in an emotional way, which does go along with the whole theme of the story because they're definitely going for a much more darker toned Star Wars film. So, yeah, let's just say things do get rather grim and gloomy as things proceed, of course. So while Ray and the rest of the gang are still together, as Ray's still attempting to find out who are her parents exactly. So what's going to go on with this film and the overall story of the characters? So there's that. And C-3PO will have a major part in this film, much more bigger than compared to the other two films he was in. And yeah, let's just say he does have to tag along with Ray and the rest of the others because there was this like dagger thing that they found, and it's written in a language, the Sith language. And let's just say that yes, he's able to translate any language, but the thing is that he's actually forbidden to actually translate it because it goes against his what his protocol is. It has something to do with the fact that the New Republic had set up such rules, of course, and he doesn't really want to disobey them. But the language that they're not supposed to translate may hold a clue as to what the Empire might be doing, or at least what's left over it. So this pretty much puts them in a pickle. And the thing is that this pretty much forces them to go to the black market, which is also a huge no-no as well. Course they eventually go to, but they have to be hush hush about it because if the New Republic finds out about what they're doing right there, they'll be sent to jail. where they meet up with this one character here, folks, whom will also become somewhat of an important figure in the overall story here. Yeah, the area they're in that when they meet up with that one character, let's just say things do become pretty chaotic. And let's just say that, yeah, there's a bit of a history here with these two characters, and not exactly a good one either. So, yeah, it's just tension upon tension upon tension that keeps growing and growing and growing. Even if they may set aside the differences for a while, Ray does desperately needs some help. Because if nothing is done right away, Palpatine might get what he wants. There's a huge risk that he actually will. So that's why they're so desperate on getting this, information, which they want to get extract from, C-3PO's memory and whatnot, and have it be restored. And if he has it restored, he may not remember hardly anything. So it's like basically like starting over, so to speak. Which, when I think about it, is actually kind of stupid when you think about it, because you mean to tell me that there isn't any backup memory built in? Well, at the very least, have the New Republic have some sort of backup system for him, because he is technically is a machine, isn't he? So what the hell? No backup memory specifically for him, like ever. So yeah, I mean, I like this movie, folks, but that's one of the aspects of the film I really didn't get, really. Speaking of complaints, is that the whole cloning bit I was mentioning earlier with this guy, I just found that to be incredibly stupid. Could we just clone even more? I know the official explanation is that they had already had a laboratory which just had a limited supply to do such a thing, which is awfully convenient. And the movie doesn't explain that, but they expect the audience to already know that. But then you do have to consider that the fact that what happened in Darth Maul in the Clone Wars TV show, where he was of course fixed up in that, and just I mean it just comes off they're just trying to bring back popular characters and find a convenient way to do so, which is absurd. I mean, you might be thinking that okay, they could just rebuild the laboratories or whatever, which the Republic had destroyed all except one, which was shown in the beginning of this film. But they wouldn't want you to explain that in the film itself because they expect the audience to already know that beforehand. Which, from the lore or whatever, which, if you ask me, is just incredibly lazy in that regard. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to bring down the movie or anything because I honestly did enjoy it. But I do have some complaints about it. It's not a bad movie. It's far from a bad movie. It's actually really cool and whatnot. There's more positive than negative. I just want to get a few of the negative stuff out the way. Is all I'm saying, folks. Just so you know. And the whole thing with cloning comes in more questionable. We come bring up the Clone Wars animated feature, which honestly I thought was a really bad movie, and that was definitely horrible. It comes out like a filler. If anything, it was not really needed. So, if anything, they're trying to bring up popular characters like that one movie did I just showed you. Bring up popular characters because fans like these characters. No reason, for no story reason, let's just bring them back. I think I want to think about, speaking of clones and whatnot, I want to bring up Star Wars Attack of the Clones, Episode 2, for a brief moment here because this whole thing just makes me want to question it because of the fact that when it comes to the Star Wars prequel trilogy, do you want to bring up the whole thing with the whole idea of this prophecy, which oddly enough doesn't make any sense really? The whole prophecy thing only brought up in the Star Wars prequel trilogy because it's trying to imply that the character of Anakin Skywalker was the chosen one to bring balance to the Force. This was never explored ever again in any of the films ever again. This just leaves a huge gap of logic in the entire franchise because what made him so special? Far like everyone else, just the same. He's not unique. He's not original. He's not some superstar or anything, even though everyone act like he is. So if there was any continuity errors, I blame that solely on George Lucas because he got really arrogant with these films. I'm not blaming Walt Disney for this because they did attempt to work around these plot holes. Didn't succeed all the way, but at least they attempted to work around these plot holes. They tried. Oh, they tried. I mean, in some respects, they kind of fixed it, but still. And like one, for example, like in episode 2, Attack of the Clones, where Palpatine explained it to Anakin that it was the will of the dark side that ultimately created him. Oh yeah, I have a question about that. Yeah, that's kind of stupid because this was the first and only time in the Star Wars lore that this ever happened. Again, what made Anakin Skywalker so damn special? This, of course, was never explained. Why specifically him? This was never happened to anyone else. Why couldn't it happen to Rey? Why couldn't it happen to any of her friends? Was part of this gang. So it's just really, really stupid when you think about it. Of course, the high quality Blu-ray disc displaying the high-pitched quality of the picture and sound. So that's great right there, folks. So of course, this was also have the digital download included if you want to watch on any of your device. There's also the Skywalker Legendary documentary, which focuses on the story, lives, forever in the full-length feature and whatnot. And there's also, of course, so many things as well going on for it. So let's have quite a bit of extras in it, which I do think is a great thing. So you can definitely have this film downloaded into laptop if you wish. So this is definitely, in that regard, a great packed disc overall. So yeah, this was definitely a film I'll add it to the sci-fi collection I have of movies, of course. As I was saying a moment ago, this film does more right than wrong. Like I said, I'm not saying that this film was perfect by any means. At the very least, I did like this film a hell of a lot more compared to these. No, these were an abomination. Me, I did like some of the ideas they were trying to go with, but they were poorly executed. But for this one, it has a pretty good idea and it was well executed. The fight scenes were really nicely done. They were pretty action-packed. This one was really fast paced since you already know these characters already, and it does get pretty dark. And I did like this film a lot more than the television TV shows that they made. Yeah, I didn't like these shows at all. I thought the shows were awful. Way, way too lighthearted. Way made me of too much kids. So it just makes the entire franchise come off like as the tone is unbalanced. The tone is really not really balanced, really, like at all. So there's that, unfortunately. It's pretty appreciative that they're not entirely ignoring the lore, which of course is actually based upon. I know a lot of people keep complaining that the Disney pretty much retconned the entire lore, which in itself is a lie, because that's where they got a lot of the ideas and themes from to begin with. So I don't know what a lot of fans seem to be getting at when they come to that. And the overall film is actually pretty good. I like the fast-paced nature of it. It didn't drag on too long. It did feel very adventurous. And overall, it did feel like a pretty good conclusion to the sequel trilogy. So that's, again, very appreciative. Because all three films are pretty good. Even though, honestly, The Last Jedi is probably my least favorite of three, but even that wasn't too bad. In some ways, I did find it rather odd in Star Wars: The Last Jedi, the certain character I felt that it was shoved in there for no reason. Yeah, Rose. I mean, the actress is fine. She did her best with the material she was given, but leave the plot of what was she doing? Oh, right. They just trying to explain away in the books and whatever. To explain as a way that, oh, she was just doing something else elsewhere. To explain why she wasn't doing some things beforehand. That seems rather convenient. So yeah, another thing I'd like to bring up real quick. Not to sound like a negative Nancy or anything, I do like these films, but in the same movie, The Last Jedi, it was strongly hinted at the fact that these characters, Finn and Rose, were gonna have a relationship. And not to burst your bubble, folks, I'm not giving away anything because there wasn't anything to give away. So that's not exactly a spoiler because, like I said, there was nothing spoiler. So yeah, in regards to that character Rose in the film Rise of the Skywalker, that character does nothing. She does absolutely nothing in regards to the story. So setting that plot point was absolutely pointless. Alright, they were trying to counter the criticism of the possible hints of homosexuality, bisexuality, or something like that. So that was just done because people are being homophobic. Really? That's really stupid. Come on, you're gonna be caving like that. So another thing I will bring up real quick. I'm just trying to get the negative stuff out the way, even though I did give it some compliments already. And is that in one of the prequel films is that specifically Star Wars Episode One, The Phantom Menace. Yeah, which I thought was a legitimately bad movie, but yeah, that film dealt with slavery and whatnot, and none of the other films displayed the fact that these Jedi characters ever knocked it down. The whole slavery bit, why wasn't ever shown? I mean, I know this might come off like I might be nitpicking it, but here's the thing. I know. Before anyone says it, it's explained in the lore as to what happened exactly and whatnot during that time period and whatnot. But that seems rather lazy. This is supposed to be something in regards of of the Anakin Skywalker family tree, right? So you think that they would have got a mentioning here and there in this film, and maybe have a better safeguards and whatnot against slavery. And it just, in some ways, it just comes off too much reliance on the knowledge of the lore. So in some degree, it may have some lazy writing. Is what I'm saying. Another thing, people who are not familiar with the Star Wars story, obviously they're gonna wonder, okay, how can the remains of the Death Star still be around even after all these years? So yeah, there's an actual explanation to that, folks. I mean, it's never said in the movie itself, which is kind of stupid. But you have to go into the damn lore to explain that certain aspect of that. Which again, I have to say that does seem rather lazy that they would never brought it up. And how did Red get those other powers? Oh, it's also said in the lore as well. Which I have to admit, again, is rather lazy. You think there would be some sort of explanation in the movie? While wanting to learn about certain themes and whatnot on the expanded universe isn't problematic in itself, really. But if there's no hints at anything that should be expanded upon in the books, or even explained it, or even somewhat explained in the films, just seems rather lazy. It should be obvious within the movies themselves. So I don't know. It seems rather lazy at some points. But like I was saying, folks, this film does more right than wrong because there were some aspects I did like the special effects. Yeah, this film actually does look like it has a budget compared to some of the other stuff I would usually review. So, which I guess is fine because they're really trying to make this final installment of the sequel trilogy like it was some grand adventure. In a lot of ways, it does. You see some aspects of the personality of the characters being expressed in this film compared to the other movies. So it does expand on what was already previously established from the other two films. It just goes on from here. Of course, the characters' relationships do change, obviously, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. Will that actually amount to something in the story? Well, you're gonna have to actually watch this film. You do get some familiar faces from the original trilogy, which I do think is a good thing because, like I said, they were trying to type a lot of stuff in this film, which they, in a lot of ways, they do. So I do like that. The dialogue itself is actually well written, which is fine, of course, because they have like quite a few uh, drafts. They have to rewrite the script or whatever. So this dialogue is actually pretty nice. I did like the fact that the actors and actresses really do their best with what they were given. So even if all of them might could have done a bit more with the characters, but overall they did a pretty good job as a whole because all these characters will have to team up and fight the greater evil because they know exactly what's at risk here, and they obviously know what's at risk because the they're trying to find out the secrets of the final order and they realize it's more dangerous than it was before. So it's definitely something that they do wonder about because they don't know what to do. The Empire, well, what's left of it anyway, has definitely gotten much more powerful than it did in the previous two films, which puts them in a very stressful situation due to how they don't know what to do really. Because the enemy of here has definitely become much more stronger than it did before. So of course, yeah, it's not something that could be easy. It's very straightforward for the characters, obviously. So there's that, of course. So yeah, even the music that was composed for this film was actually very helpful for the type of movie they were aiming for. So of course you're gonna get some musical bits was coming off to the original trilogy in some ways, but of course there's more of the newer stuff as well. So you get bits of both nostalgic type of feeling music along with some new stuff that they had composed as well. So you get a nice balance of both. So in some ways, it doesn't come off too much like borrowing from the original trilogy, even though to some degree it is. But still, an overall nice tune for the entire film. So the soundtrack was actually really nice for the movie. So that's definitely a plus there. I didn't mind the music that was done for this. So expect this to be a explosive finale. Well, you might as well go all in, of course. End it with a bang. And that's definitely what they did here, folks. So, overall, a pretty good film as a whole. I did like it, despite all the flaws that this film has. So, I'll give this one a high recommendation because I liked it. Not just that, it was also well constructed, good beginning, middle, and end. Maybe it's a bit of a mess, maybe, but still, not a bad entry at all. It's something I wouldn't mind watching again one of these days. Just so you know, it's of course a little over 2 hours. So just make sure that you're gonna watch this if you have the time, obviously. So it's definitely something that's really explosive, exciting, and overall a really good joy to watch. I'm not even a fan of these movies, and I seem to enjoy it anyway. So that tells you something right there, folks. I'll give it an overall rating of a 7.6 out of 10. It gives a 7.6 out of 10 for me. And as always, thanks for watching and take care. Until next time, see ya. Oh yeah.